The reason Labour politicians haven't referred to former Conservative Prime Minister Liz Truss crashing the economy recently. The latest stats on the cost of government's borrowing show it has risen even above the levels of her short time in office, to a 27-year high, in fact. Experts say it's because of worries about whether the Chancellor Rachel Reeves can stick to her borrowing rules. Joel is here. This sounds bad. How serious is it, Joel?
Well, look, let's remember that the British government spends more than it raises in tax. It has done this for decades, and what that means, Gamal, is that it has to borrow in order to do all the things that it wants to do. That does leave the government dependent on people willing to lend it the money, and there are plenty of investors who are willing to lend to the British government, but they are charging more. Have a look at this chart. This is fantastic. Well, it's not fantastic, but it's really interesting. The source from Capital Economics here. What you can see, this is the gilt yield, the effective interest rate the government pays to borrow over a 30-year period. You can see there it's been rising consistently in recent months and hit 5.69% earlier today, the highest level since 1998, when Gamal, the Chancellor, was in her first year at university. And speaking of the Chancellor, in her last budget, let's have a look at what's happened to the change in the government's borrowing costs. The cost of borrowing over a 10-year period has risen by 0.52 percentage points, despite 5 interest rate cuts. Now, we are not alone. France and Germany, you can see here, have also seen their borrowing costs rise too, but not by quite as much.
All very interesting, Joel, but why is the UK somewhat of an outliner on all of this?
Well, the pound fell today, incidentally, Gamal, too. So, and this is the key thing. When the pound weakens and government bond yields rise, it's usually a sign of market concern in either our economic prospects or the government's finances. And there are concerns about both. But there are a number of moving factors here. Weak economic growth in the UK has been a problem for years, and the outlook isn't much better. Inflation is persistently above target. We've got an issue with national debt. It's ballooned. Remember all of the borrowing the government did over COVID, during the energy crisis, to support households and businesses. That money was borrowed, a lot of it. And more recently, the government, of course, failed to secure the welfare spending cuts that it had promised. This is not a catastrophe. This is not a Liz Truss moment yet, but it is very serious. And unless something changes, the Chancellor is going to have to make some very tough choices in her budget, which is likely to be towards the tail end of November this year. If the Chancellor sticks to her fiscal rules, which she wrote earlier this year, she'll need to come up with something up to £40 billion from somewhere, either through spending cuts or, more likely, by tax rises.
Yeah, some more painful months ahead. OK, Joel, thank you.